Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips. I'm Tony Teixeira. I'm a recovering overthinker, therapist, entrepreneur, and a bit of an ethics nerd.
Hi, Tony, and I'm Jackie Toll. I'm an entrepreneur, unapologetic spreadsheet addict, and a low-rent stand-up comedian. So good to see you, Tony. What's your vibe been on this week? How was your vacation?
Good to see you too. My vacation was wonderful. We had an awesome time. We went to Disney World, rode the rides, ate too
Yay!
much. My husband's family came in from Brazil, so some of them were there. And one of them had a very little baby. He's 2 years old, my nephew. So exciting to see Disney through a 2-year-old's eyes. So we
I
had a lot of
bet.
fun meeting.
That's
We all
so
met
awesome.
Nikki and we took pictures together, did all that. It brought me back, Jackie, to,
That is awesome. How
my
fun that stuff
kids.
can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
fun. I'm
How
so
about
glad you
you?
got to do that. I am
Yeah, what are you
doing
vibing?
good. Like a few tactical hurdles in my business seem like they're coming to the end of the road, so that's pretty exciting. And I've just been like busy and out doing things. I went to an art festival down in Venice last weekend. That was so much fun. Really cool to see all the people and what they make. You know, I love to meet local artists. And I thought of you and your paintings, and I was like, oh, I could see Tony here
Yeah.
someday. Come down.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah. It's cool. I'm enjoying that. Yeah, my little hobby.
I love that. I love that for you. No, and I just my twins had a big 21st birthday this week, so that was fun. And I think that having had the opportunity to go have lunch with my son, it kind of tied in, and it was a little like area for me to kind of like get a little bit more intel kind of on the topic we're covering this week. So that was fun for me too.
That's great. I love the
Yeah.
connection. So
Yeah.
you brought this topic up to him?
Few questions for him. And I kind of more so used some of the tips that we're going to talk about that this article that we're going to get into is all about. But like before we jump into that, I don't know about you, but like I was in this like kind of negative headspace around like male culture, like it's
Yeah.
a lot of the input I was seeing was things like folks like Andrew Tate, and then like, you know, seeing a lot of things about male isolation and like how
Yeah.
men and boys are struggling with that. And so I've, you know, had a lot of like empathy for that topic and like also sort of concern, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I came across this article from on parents.com, and it was called Social Media is Quietly Teaching Teen Boys How to Be Men, and It's Not What Parents Think. And I was expecting this to like kind of further make me feel more like I had been feeling. But this article actually gave me a lot of hope. So I'm excited to kind of dig in and talk to you about what your thoughts are. I'm curious from you, Tony. Part of this article talked about how tech, problems that are occurring because of the technology and social media and things like that and the algorithms. But it also talked about how tech can be part of that solution. So I wonder, how do you kind of see that space? And did this article change your perception?
So the article, it really focuses on how social media and technology shape masculinity,
Yeah.
which is not really a new notion. I mean, it's specific to maybe social media and where we are right now. But like Jackson Katz came to mind. He wrote The Macho Paradox many, many years ago. I used to work for the military as a sexual assault response coordinator. So I did a lot of training on really, men's responsibility in the area of sexual assault, right? They end up, unfortunately, being most of the perpetrators, although there are women who are perpetrators as well. But there's been conversations about how men are socialized, what masculinity means, and that they don't feel like they play a role in like it's a women's problem when it comes to sexual assault, right? Like they other women. And I felt like the similarity in reading this about like how if we have this gender divide and there's really these very strict gender roles, right? This is what men look like. This is what women look like. There's no flexibility or honesty about what's going on inside because it gets really scary
Yeah.
to not be in that
Right.
box,
Fit in the
right?
box. Yeah.
Jackson Katz has this thing where he calls it the man box. Like everything that's in the box is masculine, and anything outside the box is feminine, and that's scary. The other thing that I want to add into this that's really important, I don't know, because it does come into play in terms of the social media, is that men police each other so that they make it uncomfortable for each other to be out of the man box. And I feel like that's what social media does.
Yeah.
They are essentially playing that role of policing what masculinity looks like. And then because of algorithms, we have that very specific shaping what
Right.
masculinity looks like. And then because people don't know about the algorithms, they think that that is the way that it is, right?
Right.
What my feed looks like, that's what everybody gets. That's everybody's story of masculinity. The hyper masculine, big, men and boys can't cry kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think that was one of those, it's funny or interesting, I guess, how, the book that you brought up has so many of the same ties into the social media, like, components too,
Mhm.
right? And it's just accelerated by the algorithm, and the exposure rate is so much higher, than it probably was, at least from a media perspective, a generation ago, 2 generations ago, for sure, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head here. The moral of the story, right, seems to still to be that we need to reinforce that those, the empathy and the connection to people and the humanity of us all and those types of things are also super masculine qualities, and really,
Mhm.
important to create safe spaces for people so that, everybody feels like they can be themselves and have positive relationships and
Mhm.
connections.
Mhm.
And I think, that theme hasn't, or the need for that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
But I thought it was also interesting how they brought up that while online gaming can be really toxic in certain ways and very specific ways, that overall it really fostered connection and social unity and groups and that type of thing for young men. I thought that was really interesting,
Mhm.
and it makes sense from
Yeah.
what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean that is an interesting topic. I mean, in the same way that social media could spread information that could be helpful, right? And then the overuse or the not really being good consumers of social media, you might, be
Yeah,
getting information that's not so helpful. And the same thing with the gaming communities. Having a community could be really positive, but what does that look like?
yeah,
You know,
for
what
sure.
is what does that look like? If it's an antidote to loneliness and to isolation, that could be really helpful. If there's toxicity, there's that masculine toxicity within that community. That could be really harmful. I see it. I see it in a few ways, like to the individual, to the man or the boy,
Hmm.
but also in women, in how they treat women and how they enter into relationships with women, not just as partners, but like how they treat women in the world. So I think that the hyper masculinity affects, like not just the boys themselves, but like really affects us as a society. In any time we other anyone, right, and we're
Yeah,
creating that, then we're creating a hierarchy where, like, you're less than,
right,
and then people get treated poorly, and that's where the issue of like sexual assault comes up,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I think that what one of the things the article really mentioned that I think is super important in all of this is really just talking about this, talking about gender roles as being social construction,
right,
that they are socially constructed. You're biologically male or female, that goes without saying, but gender roles are socially constructed, and we get that through our eyes and our senses and in who we're around and our experience of living in the world. And I wonder if parents are really like do that because maybe a lot of adults don't even know that. So how do
right.
they explain that to kids?
I know. I think that's an interesting place to be. I don't think I had those conversations with my kids, but in conversation with my kids now, I feel like they get it. They're in their early adulthood. Well, I do think, our generation and the one before that, has probably less adoption of that concept, right? I do think you see it. And I know previously we talked to Nick, my ex-father-in-law, right? And
Yeah.
I think he has a really interesting story, and it's so beautiful to hear it from the perspective of his son. But like, he grew up where dad was, man and this, and didn't say I love you and didn't hug, and that's how he was in the beginning of being a father and things like that. And it's at a certain point he realized how toxic that had been for him, and realized he didn't want to be like that. And he just made the conscious choice to become like an empathetic person, like to not to become it, but to like
Yeah.
share it, to like
Yeah.
embody those parts of him. And it really opened up, a much more beautiful and deep relationship with his kids. And I think that that's just so awesome, right? And those stories,
That
I think,
is
are
awesome.
so important to share and celebrate, because it's okay that, like, you were raised in a certain way, and like you've had these things, and like you can recognize them and be even grateful for how they served you in some ways, right? Like, but
Mhm.
see a better way of being and let it go and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
it
think
might
that,
have been necessary as I'm just kind of saying what you said in this way, like it might have been necessary as a little person to be like kind of
well,
keep
yeah,
those feelings in and to play that role, and then it's not necessary anymore,
yeah,
right? So I love how Nick like made that choice and made that change. That's beautiful.
yeah, and chose to, like, be intentional even about sharing it with his kids, right? Because you might like notice that dad does this and might not say anything, but to really take it full circle and be like, I've recognized this and I've made this
Mhm.
conscious change and stuff to show them, that it's okay and stuff. I think that that's so cool. But and I think that that's part of what, like, the tips in this article that were really practical and for parents to kind of like start having those like interventions and like light bulb or conversations, because it does have to be something you come to on
Mhm.
your own. Like, and the article emphasized that it really has to be a conversation with your kids about these topics, because you can't enforce like
Yeah.
the way they're going to feel on them, and it can
Yeah.
drive them deeper into some of these subcultures and things like that. So open and non-judgmental communication.
Yeah. And I think that for me, I really get just fixated on like the tips are really great, but if adults don't see this, a lot of adults don't know the difference between biological sex and gender. Think they're the same thing.
Yeah,
So they're not going to even see that there is a reason to have this conversation. So I think that the article has great tips to help parents who are aware,
fair.
want to be aware that there is an issue here, but I worry about the people who need to be the adults and the parents who need to be educated that this is even going on, right? We've been
Yeah,
talking about social media feeds and algorithms and people who are not even aware that their feed doesn't look like somebody else's. They're not even going to realize that their kids are
right.
getting fed a certain image. Or maybe they feel more comfortable with that hypermasculinity too and don't even see that it's a problem. So those kids aren't getting a variety of input. And then there are certain things that we don't think affect boys that really do, like this body image. We think that
Yeah,
body image is something that girls are affected by, but very many boys, I don't know what the statistics are, the numbers, but I know it's higher than we think it is. They have body image issues. They think that they should be more muscular or bigger. They're seeing those images all day. And that's a disorder. That's
yeah,
a disorder, not seeing yourself in the mirror the way that you are or feeling that that's okay. You're supposed to be something else. Women who see themselves as larger instead of like their real size, and boys who see themselves as smaller than their real size or trying to get bigger and having
right.
an eating disorder or working out like, 10 hours a day. That's a problem. And I feel like we don't catch that in boys. We might catch that a little bit faster with girls.
For sure.
But because boys are supposed to be big and muscular, if you see a boy who's working out and doing all that, it's like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not really noticing the signs that there's some self-esteem issues
Yeah.
going on, something else is going on.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. I think that the thing that, as you say, that jumps out to me is really, doing our best to internally evaluate are the things we're doing in balance, right? Like all of these, or a lot of these things can be good, right? In that sphere, working out is great, right? Some of us should do more
Yeah.
of it. But like if it's out of balance and if it's not aligned with or like you said, if there's a misalignment in what you see and how you perceive it. And a lot of, this stuff kind of comes back to sort of those bigger concepts of like we're all seeing the world through our own perception, right? Like like
Right.
even if we take social media out of it and stuff, but that just like puts it in front of your face constantly and like
Hmm.
is reiterating or is like pushing objectives to you that like might not be aligned with what you currently think, but if you see it enough, over time the Overton window shifts for people. It's just, we know that. And so I do think that there is, a lot that needs to be done from the perspective of these tech companies, but I also kind of agree with the article that that's not a super quick, or like I wouldn't expect to see that happen anytime
Yeah.
soon
Yeah.
with any
Well, I mean,
meaningful.
speaking of like the cognitive piece of what you're talking about, like we all have our own perception. So we do this thing, we have cognitive bias. We find in the world information that shows us that our beliefs are the right beliefs,
Right.
cognitive bias, right? And you discard all the information that, kind of goes the opposite of what you
Yeah.
believe or has a different perspective. And if and that's your social media feed, your, cognitive bias all day long, you're scrolling, you're not even getting anything to dismiss because everything that you're seeing, it really matches what your belief already is. So there's really no way to have a critical, we already have difficulty as humans being critical about our
Yeah.
own thinking and about the information that we're taking in. It makes it even harder with social media because there's no other alternative viewpoints that we can even dismiss. It's like it doesn't even exist in your feed. So it really does complicate things. And we really always come back to, Jackie, having awareness, having conversations, really being aware and being good consumers of technology and social media. And if we're not, it's like we're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think as it relates to this especially, it does put the onus back on the parent, and you're looking at something that this technology, the kids don't have fully formed brains, right? Like, and so how is this rewiring, from like or cause, causing long-term damage or shifts again to that Overton window to what we feel is acceptable or not. I think we're kind of seeing some of, that play out in the real world today, right? You have people openly saying like hateful and vile things, and nobody's, and people are like, yeah, that's all right. Like and it's that, that I think that creates like kind of a, an understandable sense of fear too in
Yeah.
folks.
Well, yeah, because what happens is if enough people are saying it, that becomes the norm. The vile
Yeah.
things that people are saying, that becomes the norm. So, all discretion is out the window. There's
Yeah.
enough, if enough of your feed is people cursing and saying vile things and there's a lot of hatred, then yeah, that's okay. Everybody is doing that. Same thing in terms of the images that young boys and men may see in this hyper masculinity, the focus on not having feelings, being really big, being really strong, having to be a family provider. I'm thinking of like all the stereotypes. That's a
Yeah.
really scary box to be in because if you're not, then how are you, you're going to feel crushed on
Right.
the inside because it's a stereotype. It's not even possible to live up to that image. And shouldn't have to. Shouldn't have to. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean that
I'm starting to go downhill here. I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, we really do boys a disservice, and it's not just boys that we do a disservice. We do girls a disservice by putting boys in a box too. Putting the boys in this box. I'm starting to feel like, wow, this really sucks.
No, I mean it's definitely, I think that there are pros and cons to a lot of it, right? Like I think of even on the girls' side, like one of my daughters was in a sorority. And, it's like there's a image standard that they had, and like I mean, it was like there were things that were like kind of like uncomfortable, like didn't feel
Sexist?
right. Yeah, like didn't feel like super cool to get behind. But on the other side, there was, a lot of like friendship and activities, and they did things, got involved with like community projects that were really like important. And like it really was like a sense of community too, right? Like
Yeah.
in a big world and stuff. And so like there's two sides to all of these things. And I think in any of these systems, right? Like you see it in economic theory and, a whole bunch of other places. If left unregulated, unguarded, right? Like they extend into chaos and like
Yeah.
destroy themselves, right? Like
Right.
capitalism, doesn't continue to have like a free and fair market if left
Right.
unchecked.
Anything run amok, right? Like
Yeah.
anything that goes
Done
unchecked,
to
it's
excess. Yeah.
probably
And
a good
I
thing.
think we need to get more serious, as we look to what's important to expect from leadership, of these companies, of our country, of our school boards, all of that stuff is to be addressing some of this and to say, hey, like there need to be guardrails and safety measures put in place. And I know that that's not like a quick thing, but again, I think starting to have those conversations is going to shift the Overton window, hopefully, into bringing these things to the consciousness of people who might not be exposed to them, but they have to be part of the conversation. And it's important, I think, to keep fighting for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to fear, and there's a lot of fear right now in our society regarding the fluidity of gender.
Yeah.
And because people don't want to have those conversations, they are othering transgender people. And that in and of itself, I feel like strengthens that boxes that boys and girls are supposed to be in.
For sure.
So I think that causes a lot of difficulty in trying to have these conversations about what is, what is a way that a child can show up and just be themselves,
Yeah.
right? Without having to subscribe to what is a gendered female or, kind of male perception, because the othering that society is doing, like, you don't want to be that, right?
Right.
So who are you going to be? You're going to be the complete opposite so that you can be accepted, right?
Yeah.
If we're not accepting everyone, then, like kind of we're creating a box that if you're not in this box, it's not acceptable. You're not acceptable.
Right.
We're doing that to kids. And I'm really curious about what your son said when you said we talked about this topic a little bit. Any insights there?
I mean, I think from his perspective, I think he really resonated, or, the thing I get from him is that, like, he does get community in his online gaming spaces, but, not necessarily from this conversation, but conversations in the past. Also, I think recognizes that they're fairly toxic. But I think both of my younger kids, actually, I think all of my kids are not really social media. I mean, they do look at it, like, I think, but they're not like in the rat race of it, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're not like sharing a bunch or trying to, or, it's not part of what they're currently like super focused on. But I don't think that means that this stuff isn't still insidious, because everybody's looking at it. I look at it. I'm sure you look at social media, right? Like, I mean, it's there. We're all interacting with it. So, but I think I'm encouraged mostly by his interest and connection and staying, connected to his like friends and like doing activities and the engagement that I see and all of that stuff. It makes me feel like, all right, like this is awesome. He's like, like these are all really good positive signs, and that like that's what his friends are into, and that gives me a lot of hope to see.
That is so important. Like, I think that's the key. It's what are you doing in the real world? It's not that, okay, you're engaging in social media and that's a problem. It's no one thing is ever a problem, but any one thing that you're only doing that one thing is going to be a problem, right? So engaging in the world, like that's really, who are your in real life friends? What are your in real life activities?
Yeah,
Because then you're exposed to more experiences and more people.
for sure.
And you'll know that what you're seeing isn't what the world looks like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's giving
Get
you a
out there.
chance to, yeah, to say, hey, this is for me or this isn't for me. Or just because these are the things that I grew up doing, maybe I enjoy doing totally different things. Or I really enjoy that same stuff. So it's cool. It's cool to see them kids go from that like kid phase to that like adult phase and really kind of like make that transition successfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that gives me hope. That gives me hope that all is not lost and that men are still connecting to each other. And I think recognizing that that's an important thing, you know?
Yeah. And that there are role models like Nick out there, and there are other dads who are out there who are showing emotion. Even I think in media right now, you're seeing that more in the movies. One of the things I loved was I'm a big Bridgerton fan. And I don't know if you notice, it slipped by a lot of people, but I've mentioned this a few times. There's consent modeled in
That's
Bridgerton
interesting.
every time, and they're engaging, and there's some
I've heard
kind of
it's pretty,
touching, or
yeah,
yeah, there's is this okay, or some kind of sign that they're connecting with each other, and they are role modeling consent, and I'm seeing that in more and more movies, which really speaks to hypermasculinity and stereotypes about sex and sexuality and stereotypes about men who are kind of like, instead of that Rhett Butler, that was a rape scene in
yeah,
Gone with the Wind. So we, being exposed to just more people, more experiences, other even, media representations besides social media could have young people expand their view of what
yeah,
that looks like, and also be critical of it, right?
yeah,
Because if you have other experiences, then you can say, wow, I'm seeing this here, but that's happening there. I wonder what that's about.
yeah.
So that's really important. So I really love this topic today, Jackie. Thank you for
Yeah, this is
sharing
a
it
fun
with
one.
me. This was a fun one. I think really what we came back to, as maybe we have in a few of the other discussions we've had, is this experiencing the real world, really thinking about what it is you see every day, and diversifying your own experiences, and that can really be the antidote to some of the problems with social media and technology.
Absolutely. Get out there and do something in the real world.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
awesome.
Jackie.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you guys next week. And don't forget to like and subscribe. All the other business stuff. All right. Take care.
We
Bye
love
bye.
that. Bye bye.